in the morning I like to do exercises because it's good for your body. You can't tell, but I literally just woke up 10 minutes ago, slapped some lipstick on, kind of did something with my hair, and put on a dress for this video. Okay, I'm ready. So, today I want to talk about how I came to Singapore not knowing one person and how I made friends. So I think this is something that a lot of my friends in Singapore have asked me, you know, how was the transition? How did it feel? How did you get acclimated into so many groups? And I'm not saying like, oh, I'm a socialite or anything like that. I mean more community groups, right? So I got acquainted into Singapore Women's Network and a community group for community managers. And I can explain all of this in further detail. But the first thing that I did when I came to Singapore was I joined meetup.com. For those who don't know what meetup.com is, it's basically this platform where you can find people with similar hobbies, right? So if you like bowling, you can find people who also like to bowl. If you like sailing, you know, improv, writing, if you're into, you know, coding, things like that. So you can find people based on like mutual interests. And I think that's such a great way to start finding friends, right? You want to find people who share the same interests as you, who will take the time out of their day to go and meet new people. So I was like, I don't know, you know, where I stand. And I found this one group, it was like young millennials of Singapore. And I was like, great, you know, these people look cool. They have events. I'm going to go and, you know, just join. And so when I was looking at their meetups, it was interesting because a lot of them were revolved around dating, and that wasn't what I wanted. I wasn't in Singapore to date. I was in Singapore to, you know, work and meet new people and just build a robust community for myself here. So I reached out to the organizer, the meetup organizer, and asked him like, hey, are you planning any social events, ones that don't evolve around dating? And he was like, oh, I don't have time for it, but if you want to plan events, you can. And I was like, oh, okay. So he gave me admin access to the meetup group, which is kind of shocking because I think it's a pretty big responsibility. Like, he just gave me admin rights, and I was like, okay, I'll just plan events, I guess. And me being an avid event planner, like back home in San Francisco, I always love planning like hiking events or like barbecue events, like things like that. So I was like, hell yeah, I will take on this responsibility. So for meetup, I planned one for hiking at Rakuchi Hill, and it turned out to be pretty good. Like, I was actually pleasantly surprised. So there was like 50 RSVPs, and at that time I was kind of panicking because I've never done anything like this before. But as you know, with meetups, only 15 to 20% show up. There's a huge drop-off rate because, I don't know, something about free events, people just, they'll RSVP and then they'll be like, okay, I'm not showing up. But we had, roughly 15 to 20, sorry, it's just coffee in the morning. We had 15 to 20 people show up, and I got to know a lot of great people in one day. So I think I would highly recommend, you know, newcomers to Singapore to join a meetup group, because you don't know who you'll meet, right? Like, I met this one guy who came from Vietnam, and he works at Shopee, and he works in like data analytics, and he was so cool. Like, it's, you know, he was just telling me about his experience, and he also moved recently, and he just was homesick and missing like Vietnamese food. And then afterwards, after the entire hike, we went to kind of like a food mart or, you know, like a cafeteria, and then all of us kind of just hung out and chatted about our backgrounds and what we do. And now we have like a WhatsApp group. So we do this, you know, we haven't been doing it consistently, but I would have if COVID didn't, you know, ruin the plans. But once we can start, you know, moving about again, having groups of more than 5, I'll probably start planning more of these hiking events. So I highly recommend just joining a meetup group. It's a really great way to meet new people. And yeah, if you do it, let me know how it goes. Or if you've tried meetup, let me know how you like it. I think, again, it's just like the most easiest way of meeting new people when you first come to a new country. Number 2, I actually found Singapore Women's Network, which is this women empowerment group. It's a women networking circle. We do workshops, we do events, we hold webinars, etc. So my sister, when she was in Singapore visiting, she had gotten involved with them because she went to a few events, and she sent me their newsletter. And so I remember it was my friend Mimi who was asking for volunteers, and I reached out and I was like, hey, I'm here in Singapore. I am more than happy to help plan events or just be of use. And so I met the team, and I was like pleasantly surprised that the board, a lot of them are, they're French, and that's super interesting to me because I didn't realize how big of a French community was here in Singapore, and that really surprised me because I don't know, for some reason I was just like, it's probably just Asians. But that really surprised me. So I joined the group and I started helping out, volunteering, planning events for them on their behalf, and just organizing content, doing Q&A articles, etc. If you're interested, it's www.swn-org.com. So we have an event once a month. A lot of them have been reverted to webinars or workshops that are all online. And I think once COVID is over, well, it's never going to be over, but once things get better, we'll again have events online as well. But I do think that it's great to be part of something, whether it's like nonprofit or social impact. It's something that kind of helps draw you to a same shared mission. So I highly recommend just being part of like, a career group, a professional network, or something that you can volunteer with. I don't know, I just feel like Singapore Women's Network helped me open a lot of doors in that sense, and peeks into lives that I never would have seen, right? So like one of the ladies, she's from Turkey, and she and her husband moved to Singapore here because of his job, and now she's pregnant, and last happy hour she was telling me all about her pregnancy and things like that. So it's really awesome. I don't know, I really like meeting new people. I think it's so great to hear about other people's stories. Yeah, so highly recommend joining something of that sort, whether it's like professional, social impact, volunteering, etc. All right, the third way that I've met people in Singapore is through Tinder. No, I'm kidding. I've only met one person on Tinder. Yeah, and we're not going to talk about that. But the other way that I've met other people is through Instagram and Facebook, surprisingly. So one of my good friends, she created this like global network on Facebook, and she invited her friends, and then their friends invited their friends, and so you got people from all over the world in this like 250 plus group, and all of us are similar minded, where we've worked abroad or we traveled abroad, and we all work in tech. And so there are a few Singaporeans in the group, and I reached out, and one of them happens to be a really good friend of mine now, Haylin, and she's just been such a great person to like discuss and share ideas with, and I'm really happy that we met in person, because we had a Zoom chat first, one-on-one, and then we met in person and had coffee, and now we hang out. And I think next week we're gonna go make candles. So that's one way. And then the other way was through Instagram, which is funny because I think growing up, your parents, or at least like my parents, parents in the US, right, it's generally not as safe in Singapore, and so you don't meet up with random people. But I feel like that's all I've been doing in Singapore. So I met up with a few people through Instagram. I do run a personal finance Instagram handle called Fang Finance, and I met some really great people there as well. They just like reach out and they're like, hey, I'm in Singapore, and I'm like, great, let's hang out, let's grab coffee. So I have met a few good friends there, and I think it's just refreshing to have people excited about personal finance just as much as I am. Yeah. And then I think lastly, the fourth way to make friends is just keep an open mind, right? I think a lot of expats come to anywhere and they just want to stay within their circle because yes, it's very comfortable and you stick to what's familiar, but I think if you're going to a new country, you should be going out of your way to understand like the culture and the language and make friends with locals. So that's one thing that I really tried to keep in mind while I was here, right? I don't want to just like hang out with expats all the time. I think it's really important to try and integrate and try to explore the different parts. So when I was living in Somerset, which is a very highly expat centric area, and there's a lot of malls and just tourism, it just wasn't really for me, and now I live in Tanjung Paga, near Chinatown, so I'm a lot more happier here. They're like families, I get to see how they live, I go to like hawker centers and like fair price and just buy my fruit outside the stalls. So I think it's really important to just keep an open mind and to really just try to be friends with everyone that you meet. I mean, you don't have to be best friends with them, but at least leave a good impression and, ask them about their life. Like some people have such crazy stories, but they're just not gonna share it with you because, you just have to take an interest in it and you have to be warm and genuine. So I guess, those are kind of the ways that I've made friends here in Singapore. I would generally say that Singaporeans are very friendly. I mean, they're not like American friendly, where you can strike up a conversation like in an elevator or at a coffee shop, because I've tried to do that a couple of times and then they're like, why are you talking to me? So yeah, I wasn't gonna do that again, but they're very open-minded and friendly. So I think you kind of have to approach them in a setting where it's comfortable for them, and in the sense that like through like events or meetups or just grabbing coffee chats. Yeah, that's how I would say it. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure if you could go to a coffee store and just start chatting with people randomly. I think it'd make them uncomfortable. Whereas I feel like in the US you could do that and you could have a best friend like the next day, especially in like California. And then if we're talking like even more narrow down, probably LA, which is where I grew up. Yeah. So anyways, I guess I would say those are the ways that I've made friends in Singapore. Yeah, so let me know in the comments below if there are any events or organizations I should also join here while I'm in Singapore. But other than that, thanks for tuning in and don't forget to subscribe.